This is the Creative Market Free Goods Roundup for the week of February 16th, 2015. As per usual, there are 6 different free goods this week, but they are free this week only. So if when you watch this video you find any that you think you might have use for, be sure to check out the description where I will place links to each one of them. First up is Acula, a dry brush font. This font is provided in OpenType, TrueType, as well as a web font format, and it's a pretty cool dry brushed font, so I'm going to zoom in a little bit closer so you can get a better look at the texture of these individual letters. I think it's a pretty convincing representation of a dry brush font. It does a really nice job of showing the texture throughout all these different letters, which can be a little bit hard to do in a font without looking a little bit too cheesy. I don't think that really happens with this particular font. I think it does a really nice job of portraying the movement and the roughness that comes through in a more hand-drawn type application. So all the letters included in this font are uppercase. There aren't any lowercase variations, but since this is a headline, very bold font, I don't think that's a huge issue here. It also includes all the numbers as well as a handful of different special characters. If I highlight over this and then go to type and then glyphs near the top here, you can see all the special stuff that's included. There's a little bit of weird stuff going on in the center here with a bunch of blank spaces. I'm not totally sure what causes that, but overall this is a fairly complete font, so be sure to check out the glyphs of this font if you want to see everything that is included. And one weird thing that I noticed when using this font, it's pretty specific, but if you draw the @ symbol after a letter or something like an exclamation point, as you can see right here on my screen, you can tell that the @ sign overlaps it, but if you do the @ sign before it, that isn't an issue. I think it just has something to do with the way the @ symbol is justified. It seems to be justified right down the center of the letter, so if you use the @ symbol and you run into that issue, that's probably why. You can get around that pretty easily by just outlining the @ symbol and placing it yourself. It's not really a huge issue, I just thought I'd point that out quick. So I typed out Free Goods Roundup so you can see how this looks as it's actually typed out into a sentence. I think it has a cool final outcome. All the kerning of the different letters and how they interact I think works just fine. As the appearance of this font is very hand-drawn, I think a little bit of inconsistency in the overall kerning of all these letters is actually a good thing. I think it does a better job of conveying the hand-drawn look than if every letter was absolutely perfectly spaced apart. So I really like this font, and if you like it too, be sure to pick it up this week while it's still free. Next up is Fresh Blog WordPress theme. So this is a WordPress blog theme, and it has a pretty interesting navigation. So you can either use your mouse wheel to scroll down, which will bring you to all the different pages that you have on your particular blog. In this case, it's broken up into pages. So there's 5 posts on this first page, so you can scroll down to see all 5 of the different posts on this particular page. And once you get to the bottom here, you can hit this arrow on the side, which will bring you to the second page, and that'll load in even more posts. So I'm assuming depending on how many pages you have, it will continue segmenting them into groups of pages just like these. If you click on Read More, it'll bring you to a page with a really nice large image on the side here, as well as plenty of room to add descriptive text on the side here. There's also all the expected social share buttons, a post date, as well as tags. If you scroll down here, there's even more room to add additional text or images as you see fit. In this case, this image is on a slideshow, so you can go through and add a bunch of different images here, and people can scroll through them to see everything that's included. And also at the top here, there's this green leaf icon that if you click, it brings up a side menu. One thing I noticed though is that on my side menu, I'm inside Chrome on a Windows machine, so maybe that's part of what's going on here, but you can actually see what appears to be these scrolling bars that are locked out. I noticed on the preview images on the actual Creative Market page, these aren't shown, so maybe it's just a bug with a combination of a Windows machine on Chrome or just my machine. So if you also see these scroll bars or perhaps don't see them on your machine, you can let other people know in the comments of this video. But this is a pretty cool idea that has this little slide up menu here where you can actually search by entering a keyword, see all the different articles that you can just click on. It'll bring you to that particular page here, as well as breaking things out into categories and sections. It's a really quick way to navigate in comparison to scrolling down through all the different pages and navigating that way, so it's kind of nice that they included that in there. But I think this is a pretty cool theme overall, particularly if you have lots of really nice high quality images. I think this could be really strong for photographers, food bloggers, travel bloggers, anything like that where you really want to have nice large images with plenty of room to write about it on the side. This is a really strong fit for that. So if this theme looks like something you have use for, be sure to pick it up this week while it's still free. Next we have Natural Skin Smoother. This is an action for Adobe Photoshop, and looking at the way it's constructed, I don't think it's going to work in Adobe Photoshop Elements. So I went ahead and actually ran this action, and when you open up the action, there's a folder called Dare to Dream. So if I open that up here, you can kind of take a look. At the top here, there's just a link. I think it's just a link to their website. If you run it, nothing happens, so don't even worry about that. The only thing you have to worry about is Natural Skin Smoother, so select that, then hit the play button. It might take a little bit of time to process, but once it does, it creates this folder on top of your photo. And as you can tell, turning on or off this folder doesn't have any effect because you have to actually go in there and brush on where you want this action to actually start affecting your photo here. So just click on the mask, which is solid black by default, and then use the brush. So I have a brush selected here. You want the color to be white. When the brush is white, it'll actually apply this effect. So very quickly, I'm just going to brush this over his forehead so you can see what it does. It does a really nice job of just smoothing out any pores or wrinkles on the skin and make it into a much more smooth, almost plasticky appearance. And as a little tip here, I'm by no means an expert on photo retouching, but when you use a brush to go over this to kind of smooth out certain areas, I'd recommend clicking on that brush and making sure your hardness is set to 0%. If you do 100%, it'll have a much more hard edge wherever you apply that brush. And you probably want to make sure that this fades into the other areas of the face as best you can. Once again, I'm just doing this very quickly. If you're actually doing this to someone on a professional kind of thing, you're going to want to spend a whole lot of time here to make sure that all the blends, etc. look natural. Like right now, this is looking a little bit too plasticky for my taste. So go in there and really spend a lot of time painting on areas and maybe adjusting the actual opacity. For instance, on this folder, if I have this folder selected, I can bring the opacity from 100% down to something a little bit lower. So as you can tell, it starts to look a whole lot more natural that way. If I turn on and off this folder, you can tell it still has a pretty pronounced effect on the overall smoothness of the skin here, but it doesn't look too plasticky. Like if I turn this back up to 100% and then I just very quickly apply this brush over everything, it starts to look almost like a Barbie doll face, which I think might not be a good thing unless that's the particular effect that you're going after. But as I bring this percentage down, it becomes a whole lot more natural and smooth. I'll just turn on and off this folder once again here so you can see that difference. As I brought down the opacity a little bit more, it becomes a much more natural effect that I think a lot of people will find more useful. So if this action looks useful to you, be sure to pick it up this week. Next up is Inky PSD Brushes. So this is a set of 26 different brushes for Adobe Photoshop. So I went ahead and loaded these brushes and then made this beautiful custom artwork here that you can take a look at. And I'll zoom in a little bit closer here so you can get a better idea of how these textures look up close. It has a pretty cool but very soft texture to it. It probably shows best on the black color here so you can get a better look at how that looks. I'm actually at 200% right now, and this is how it looks at 100%. And also, as you can see, there is a little bit of transparency in these due to that texture. So as you overlap these different colors, you can get some neat effects that way. And taking a look at these brushes, they're all very large. They range from about 1,000 pixels square to up to over 3,000 pixels long, so they should be plenty big for most digital or print applications that you want to use them on. And I'll just show you a possible use scenario here. So I made this squirrel in black, and then I placed a white version of the same squirrel outline over it, and I'll just show you how you can quickly add some texture to this squirrel using these brushes. So I'm going to actually put a mask over the top of this white squirrel here, and then I'm just going to quickly brush on a little bit of texture using one of these included brushes here. So as you can see, it's really easy to go in there and kind of add some custom texture, and the end result is pretty neat. And when you do it this way, you can actually apply that texture over the same area twice to get some kind of neat inky splotches going on. If I zoom in a little bit closer here, you can kind of see that overlapping ink splotch texture a little bit better. I think it's a pretty cool effect, so I really like these brushes for that particular use. But that's just a really quick demonstration of what's included here. There are 26 brushes in total, so I'd really recommend going in there, playing around with all the different brushes and kind of overlapping them and seeing how different effects work on top of each other. You might be able to make some really cool stuff that way. But if you think you might get some cool use out of these brushes, be sure to pick it up this week while it's still free. Next we have 100 HighRes Photos. So this is a set of 100, yes, that's 100 different photos in JPEG format, and I selected 8 of them at random here just to show inside Photoshop. So although there's 100 in the pack total, I think this is a pretty decent cross-section of what's included here. And all these are also quite large. If I go to image size, the sizes do vary, but this particular image is 2700 by 3500 pixels, so they should be plenty big for most applications where you want to use a photo. And I'll just quickly scroll through the included photos here so you can kind of get a good idea of what is inside this pack as a whole. There's some really nice outdoorsy shots, kind of like these, that I find pretty useful to overlay designs on, as well as a handful of different product shots like this one right here. This is a very high quality photo, it looks nice and sharp. These next two are actually some of my favorites of the bunch because these work perfectly if you have kind of a naturey or outdoorsy themed design where you want to give it a nice natural backdrop. Stuff like this comes in really handy to give your designs a little bit more life when you're actually presenting them in a portfolio or on a website like Dribbble, where you want to add a little bit more character than perhaps just a standard white background. Here's a cool image of a tunnel with some graffiti on the sides here. And here's the last one I'm going to show. There's a handful of these in here as well that are just very close-up texture photos. So if you're looking for some cool textures to either apply to your work or overlay on top of it, there's a bunch of stuff in this pack that might come in handy for you for that reason. But it's a nice pack overall, and with 100 images, that's a really huge pack, so there's tons of stuff inside here for you to check out. So if you like the images that I've shown thus far, I'd really recommend that you pick up the entire pack and check out everything that's included. But if you have a project in mind where you think these photos might come in handy, or you think these might come in handy in the future, be sure to pick this up this week. And last up is Cover, a responsive email theme. This is a collection of HTML newsletter templates for email. They're pretty similar to the ones I showed last week, and there's 4 different layout types, and each one of those also has 4 different colors. So there's blue, there's green, orange, as well as purple. And I'll just show this one off right here. So these do a really nice job, if I just look at these quickly, of having a very strong call to action at the top, which is always really important in emails. You want people to click on that button right away just to drive them to whatever it is you are trying to get them to do. And as I scroll down here, there's a bunch of different sections and layout styles that you can pick from. So this one has a large image in the center here, as well as given the option to split thumbnails. So perhaps if you have a really important blog article that you really want to showcase, you can do that one right here. And then down here, you can have other articles for people to check out. There are also sections for things like services we provide. So if this is the first time introduction email for your business or design practice, this could come in really handy to very quickly showcase what it is you do. And there's also this layout style with the thumbnails alternating, as you can see right here. At the bottom here, there's a pricing table, which comes in really handy if you're selling a subscription-based service. And right here, we go down to some of our clients, as well as at the very bottom, all the different social icons that you'd come to expect. So I think this will come in particularly handy to people that are very comfortable in working with HTML, and that are looking for a little bit more customization option than perhaps a standard MailChimp or Constant Contact template would give them. This way you can have total control over absolutely everything that you're working on, which sometimes different pre-built themes, you can't go in there and make a lot of fine detail changes that you might want to. And if you do have the skill to do that, that can come in really handy. And I think one of the really cool defining features of this particular set are that all these themes are fully responsive, which is a really cool bonus when it comes to something like email templates that can be really difficult to code because all the different email services tend to render these things in a different way. So it's really cool that they were able to pull that off. But if you're on the lookout for some HTML themes for email marketing, these are super cool, and I'd really recommend picking them up this week while they're still free. So that's it for this week's free goods, and do remember they are free this week only, so be sure to check out the description if you want to download any of them. And as always, if you found this video helpful, please like and favorite, and if you want to see this video every week, please subscribe. This video is released every Monday to let you know what's free this week on Creative Market. Thank you for watching.